Hello, and thank you for joining us again. This is Sunlight Radio Online, and my name is Akwesi Opong, and today we are talking about roles in marriage. What roles do you play? You know, it's interesting and worth noting that not every couple fits the mold, in the sense that some couples do things totally unconventional and very untraditional, in the sense that you could find a home in which I said earlier, the man does all the cooking, the woman enjoys doing the yard work, will love to cut grass, the woman will love to, plan projects. I remember we had some very good friends who his wife could actually demo a whole bathroom and redo it herself. She would take out everything, the walls down, and put sheet rock and mount the tiles and connect the piping. She was so gifted at doing those things, and the point we made earlier, that you have to find what you're good at. She was just so good at it, and there are equally some men who are very also good at cooking and can take very good care of the children. So there are no rules here. The key thing here is making sure that it's been communicated and there's a full understanding of who does what and who is expected to do what. And these rules too are not set in stone. When things happen or things change, we have to learn to be flexible. We have to learn to adapt. Adaptability is key, is a key part of having a great relationship. If you learn to be able to adapt as things change around you, it's often said that the only constant thing in this life is change. It's the only thing that stays constant is change. Things will change around you, and the question is, how well are you going to adapt as things change? How well are you going to be able to say, you know what, this has changed today, let me adapt to it. If we set our expectations in stone, we set ourselves up for disappointment, heartbreak, confusion, and pain, and it robs us of our happiness. So let us give ourselves the flexibility to adapt to change, and that's the very next thing we're talking about now. So no matter how fair and equal things seem at the start, you may have to make adjustments along the way, and that's again flexibility. One spouse who was at home may begin a full-time job at some point. Another may experience a serious illness, injury, or childbirth, or even some positive life events like, maybe a promotion that requires more time. Don't go strictly by the numbers. We have to allow ourselves for flexibility, and also our ability to adapt, and also the ability to make changes when other things around us change. This will really help us to be able to fill in the gaps where we need to. And I remember I started the beginning of this discussion by talking about the fact that we pick up roles based on what we saw in our home. So if you typically saw that your father tend to work and your mom stays at home, when you go to marry, you tend to expect the same thing. And most too often it brings disappointment. But what's wonderful about what we're talking about today is that if we learn to talk about these roles, if we learn to be adaptable and flexible, we are teaching our children that these roles are fluid. They move. One person can take up this role, the other person can do this. And so they in turn will go into their relationship with a very healthy expectation, knowing that as they get married, their roles might change, and they have to learn to adapt. They have to learn to be flexible, so that they are not surprised when they realize that the son who went away to marry, it's not surprise when he has to come to the kitchen to do dishes. It won't be a shock to him because he saw his dad do it. So it's not a surprise. Men can do dishes equally, and it's not a woman's job. So it's very important that we make that clear, that in understanding this, we're not only helping our marriages, we're helping set the right expectation for our children as well. So let's make sure that we take this to heart and make sure that we are really talking about these issues. So fair and equal doesn't mean that necessarily mean one for you, one for me. Remember that some chores are more difficult and time consuming than others. So again, there are different levels of talking about this, in the sense that there are different levels of chores around the house. So some require more time, some require less time, and that is something that I cannot set any rules on. And again, my work here is not to set rules, but to provide tools. So I'm not going to, provide any tools on this, because these are the dynamics that every couple will have to sit down and talk about how it applies to their marriage. So, moving on. So, what we're going to do the rest of our time left is talk about some of the key things. And this part of our resource comes from Symbos. Symbos is save your marriage before it starts. Sorry about that. So, it's by Les and Leslie Parrott. It's a great resource that we use in our church, and I absolutely love their resources. They've written a number of books, and I'll ask that you look at it. If you're planning on getting married, Symbols is a great tool to use. And they use this list to look at some areas that couples find similarities or expectations, who did what or didn't do what, and what they expect to see in their marriage going forward. So we're going to go through that list and look at them and maybe discuss them a little bit. And this is a great time to let you all know that we do have a phone number if you'd like to contribute to this wonderful topic with roles. When we talk about roles in marriage, who does what in your home, and how is that working? And are you satisfied with the arrangement you have in your home when it comes to married couples and roles? And what would you like to see change? Or maybe you have a setup that is working very well for you, and you'd like to share that with the rest of us. We'd love to know. So the phone number here is 240-772-1420. It's a text message only number at this point. So thank you so much for joining us, and we are going to dive right into this. So the first thing we're going to talk about is yard work. Now, I was telling my wife before we came on the show that I don't know if this was based on research, but the topics they picked in the Symbos assessment really are things that really can bring up conflicts quite easily in almost every relationship. So it's one of those things that every couple will have to talk about and decide how they want to go about. So the first thing is yard work. Who does yard work in your house? And again, I've hinted to this that typically men like to do it. I love yard work because it gets me out of the house, and I feel I'm doing something that I can see an immediate result. And I like yard work too because it's a workout. I just love doing things in the yard, outside, and being able to just enjoy the outdoors, especially when the weather is nice. And even when the weather is not nice and it snows, I like to be out there to clear the snow. So what do you like doing? Or what does your spouse like doing? So yard work is one of those things that you have to talk about. And again, there are no rules here, but it's always nice to work together too. So this is another opportunity that one Saturday, late morning or afternoon, both of you can decide that, we're going to go out there and clear the leaves, or, make sure that the garden looks nice, and we're all going to put in our effort. And again, this is also another teaching opportunity for your children to see that both of you work at things together. So it's very, very important that we approach this. Gassing up the car. Who puts gas in the car? We've heard so many about couples who maybe share one family car, and one of them is driving home, the weather is cold, the gas tank is showing that it's going low, it's all, I just want to get home, it's cold. So they get home, and the next morning the spouse gets up to go to work, he or she's running late, and the gas is almost empty, and you hear those screams. The couple is upset because there were no expectations set, there were no rules, so the other person just assumed that, it's cold, let me just go home. So who puts gas or petrol, as in Europe and in Ghana we say, will put gas in the car? So you have to decide on this. Fixing things around the house. Who is the handyman in the house? Who will fix things? Now, as I talk about all of this, these are roles that, as I said earlier, you saw one person in your home do, whether your father or mother did these things. So who is going to do them in your home? And sometimes the expectation might be different. And again, that's where you need to talk about it. So maybe Tom might expect that his wife will do the laundry, but he too wants to do the laundry because he likes to do the laundry a certain way. So that's where you talk about it and come to a compromise and say, well, you know what, you do the laundry, I'll fold them, or let me do the laundry and you take care of something else around the house. So communication is always key when it comes to these issues. Who does the laundry? The next thing on the list is who makes the bed. We've heard a lot of jokes about making bed that goes like something like, well, we're going to sleep on it at the end of the day. Nobody comes to our room whilst we're at work. So why do we have to make the bed? There's a short, I think, a motivational video I saw. I think it was a United States Army commander who gave a speech. And the first thing he said was, I don't know his name, but I like the first thing he said is, if you want to feel accomplished in your day, when you get up in the morning, make your bed. You have a deep sense of accomplishment because you did something just when you got up from bed. So that's the advice I'll give to you. When you get up in the morning, make your bed. And I guess when it comes to making the bed, I don't mean to set any rules here, but whoever gets up last makes the bed, or whoever is home could bring the bed. But every couple can decide how you want to do it. And this is not one of those situations where, you get up and you want to make your side of the bed whilst your spouse is sleeping. I don't think that's a good idea, because you probably might wake her up, or any of those can happen. So who makes the bed? It sounds very trivial and so fundamental, but you'll be surprised. These are issues that have brought so much conflict and heartache and pain to several marriages. So it's important that we talk and think through these things and know where we all stand on them, and also set the expectation right, so that as we go into this, or as we go through our marriages, for those of you who are preparing, you have a greater perspective as to what to expect as you go into it. One big one is doing dishes. Who is going to do dishes? Do you do your dishes as soon as you finish eating yourself, so it doesn't get piled up? Who does the dishes in your home? It's got to be discussed. Cleaning the house. Who cleans the house? Do we divide them up and say, you know what, every weekend I'll clean all the bathrooms, make sure it's done, I'll make sure the garage is always okay, my wife will do this part of the house. There are so many ways you can address this, but these roles are very important. Cleaning the house, making sure that it's done, and make sure that you're helping each other. There's one area that there's no hard and fast rule that one person should do this part of the house. We can all chip in to make it work. But again, every couple is different, and you might have a different approach to it. As long as both of you understand and are working towards it, that's what is important. So one big one here is cooking. Who does the cooking in the house? I've heard of stories of couples who decided that, when it comes to a specific breakfast meal, they will do it separately because they never came to a compromise as to how they want it done. Because when the man was growing up, pancakes in his house was done differently. The butter was very thick, and they piled it on the griddle, with all kinds of things in it, bananas and blueberries and all of that. And the wife's family grew up, while she grew up, pancakes were light. It had nothing in it, it was very easy to eat. So they were never able to come to a compromise. So the best way they did was decide that you do your pancakes, I do my pancakes, and we enjoy it. So, and what I'll add to this is that you can learn how your spouse likes her pancakes. So I can learn how my wife likes her pancake, and my wife can also learn how I like my pancakes. And in that way, we can serve each other by making it the way they want it. That is a better approach, because it means that we're finding ways of serving. I like the term servant leadership, where we look at the ways of coming to the level of our spouses to make sure that we are giving and serving at the same time. So we are talking about roles in marriage today, and this is a great time for us to take a quick break. And again, if you want to contribute or send us a message, the number is 240-772-1420. This is Sunlight Radio Online, and this is Akwesi Opong. We'll be right back. Hello, and thanks for joining us today on Sunlight Radio Online. This is Akwesi Opon. We are talking about roles in marriage. Who does what in your home? Who do you expect to do what in your home? Between you and your spouse, and even sometimes your children. I've often said that let your children help your marriage by letting them help in your home. Whatever is age appropriate. If you have toddlers, I don't expect you to let them start cooking. It's not a very good idea. But if they're age appropriate, as soon as they can do things, let them do it to help you, and also let them pick up the skills they also need for life. So we're going down the list of things that are important for us to think about when it comes to our roles in our relationship. And the next thing we're going to talk about is taking out trash. I know these things sound very trivial, but again, you'll be amazed that it can bring conflict. So who takes out trash? Whoever, when you get there and it's full, take it out, or one person is assigned. Usually daddy duty is one of those things, the trash, which is good. You go out there, take it out there, put it by the curbside to make sure that it goes away. So who takes out trash? Some agreements will have to be made. Who does grocery in your home? Doing grocery means you have to think of the meals. What are we going to eat? Who needs what? What do we have to get? And it involves more. So typically, whoever cooks does the groceries, but it's not a rule. You can decide how you want that to work within your home. So, taking care of a pet. Do you have a pet in your home? And who takes care of the pet? And again, this could be another source of contention, especially when one person came into the relationship with a pet and the other person didn't, or one person grew up with a pet and the other didn't. So these are some of the rules that have to be set in place as you get into your relationship. And if you're already in a relationship and you plan on getting a pet, you have to talk about it, because most too often the joy of having the pet overshadows the responsibility of taking care of the pet, and that could lead to issues as well. So, scheduling social events. We live in a society, we have social obligations, and there are things that we're expected to do in our community for people, with people, PTA for your children, or, community events to support specific causes, or, various things that we do these days to make sure that we are supporting our communities and our society. It makes our world better. So who does what? And if you want to go for a walk or cleanup event to support a certain charity, those things have to be discussed. So you don't have the situation where a Saturday morning you want to maybe go have breakfast with your husband, and your husband says, "Oh, I'm going to that community event downtown," and you're like, "What event?" It comes as a surprise. So we have to know these things. We have to talk through these things and make sure that the expectations are there. Planning vacations and holidays. Some people are like, "Plan it, we'll go. I don't care where you plan, I'm fine." Other people, couples want to be involved. They want to know where we're going, what we're spending, what we're going to eat, all the details. This is one of those where both of you will have to talk about, decide how you want things to be. And with this, one of the things I also say is that even if your spouse is hands-off when it comes to vacation, seek their opinion about it. Ask them, what do you think? Or what would you like? And take that into consideration as you plan. Because the last thing you want is planning something that is so, specific to your liking that your spouse or the rest of your family will not enjoy. So think this through very well and make sure that you incorporate the needs and desires of your family when you're planning vacations or holidays. And when it comes to holidays, one thing too that you have to talk about is, where do we spend it? Do we go to my father's house or your mother's house, or do we not go anywhere? Those are some of the issues. And I think this is one topic you have to decide year by year, because I don't expect you before you get married to decide where you're going to spend every holiday or where you're going to go every vacation. That's not the point here. So as time goes on, you decide how you want things done. Decorating the house. What do you want on the walls? What do you want on the floors? How do you want your house to look like? Does one spouse have an eclectic design interest, and the other one wants traditional? I like farmhouse. I like the farmhouse feel. It's very calming. It doesn't have too many sharp edges. I like craftsman. That feel of tradition in home design very much appeals to me. But maybe my spouse wants something different, something modern, something trendy. We have to find ways of incorporating these things, into our home. So talk about these things. It really helps you to set the expectation and also know who is going to do what, who is going to help with what, how things are going to look like. Making major decisions. How do you make major decisions? Major decisions could be like, should we have one more child? Or a major decision would be like, let's move to another state or another country. A major decision would be like, I want to go back to school and get my master's degree or my PhD. Those are things you talk about, and you don't just leave it up to chances, because all these major decisions will not only impact you, the spouse, making that decision, but it's also going to impact your spouse and also your children. It's also going to impact your community, your church, because when you're busy or you're traveling, it means that you won't be at your social gatherings and social community events. You won't be able to make it to church because you're out of the country. So these are major decisions that when major decisions come up, you have to talk about it, set the expectation, know who will do what at every point. And as time goes on, you can adapt, you can change them. But the goal here is to make sure that the understanding is there and we are all on the same page. Initiating talks about your relationship. And on this, we can also add talking about spiritual matters. Who talks about spiritual matters in your home? Do you have a dedicated time where you say, you know what, every Sunday night we'll talk about spiritual matters, and we'll talk about things that got to do with our relationship? You know, we did a post on this show on the state of your union, as to how you talk about things going on in your home and in your marriage. That will be one for you to go back and review. You can go to our website, which is enjoylifewithyourspouse.com, and find that resource, and that will really help you to initiate these discussions about your relationship, talk about your spirituality, your relationship with God, quiet time, all those things, you know. Providing income. Who provides income? You know, we hinted on that earlier, that, you know, if you have a number of children and you realize that both of you can be working because you're only working to pay somebody else to take care of your children, then the decision has to be made. One person has to be home, but who stays at home? And then who takes care of the children? All those decisions are very important, you know. Paying bills. Who pays bills in the house? Who sits down, tabulates all the bills, make sure everything is paid, make sure that, you know, the money is being spent well, and both of you are on the same page when it comes to finance in the home? Who does these things? It's important that you talk about these as well and know who is taking up these roles. You know, disciplining your children, you know, that's a big one. The last thing you want is where, you know, children are smart, as you all know. They know who dishes out the least punishment, and they can really play games with husband and wife. So it's important that both of you are on the same page as to how you go about disciplining your children. And most importantly, it's important that you both agree that, you know, when it comes to discipline, it means we're taking away technology, or when it comes to discipline, doesn't mean spanking. You know, those of us who grew up in Africa, we were very used to spanking. You know, it was a real deal, and it sent the message clear. And just to make a point on that, research shows that if a child is in a society where all kids are spanked, it's okay. It doesn't harm them. It doesn't cause any emotional issues. But the problem happens when a child lives in a society or a community where it's not done and they are the only one being spanked. And of course, spanking doesn't mean you're hurting your child. It means that it's a corrective way. Spanking could be done correctively. I think that's not the topic we are on today, so I won't get too detailed into that. I just wanted you to know my view on that. So, rounding all this up, we have to make sure that everything we do in our home, the roles we play as husband and wife, we talk it through, we know who is doing what, and we make sure that we set the right expectations to make sure nothing suffers in our home. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Akwesi Opong, and we're so glad that you were able to join us for another show today. We hope that you'll be able to talk about the roles in your marriage and make sure that both of you are playing your roles well and all is going well with you. Join us again next week, and in the meantime, you can always come back to Sunlight Radio to learn more about some of the other shows we have here. I also invite you to our website, enjoylifewithyourspouse.com, where we archive all the shows we have here. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you again next week.